On January 14, 2014, the Sacramento Bee reported that Nicholas Mangeli admitted to and waived trial for the 2012 murder of 26-year-old Michael Allen Cole. It meant a sentence of life without parole. He did not ask for a plea bargain. For the sentencing hearing on February 24th, the court requested a victim's impact statement from Michael's father. The video that follows is that statement.
Michael Allen Cole was born on July 23, 1985.
What a day for a daydream. What a day for a daydreaming boy.
Full head of hair, beautiful eyes. He was perfect.
Dreaming about my bundle of joy.
He was fiercely independent and hated being told what to do. But he knew the difference between right and wrong and generally chose the right things and was never mean. He did have to deal with new parents, learning as they went. Not easy on him. When Mike was 3, he became a brother. And this didn't excite him much because he wanted to be the center of attention. So having a sister was not his favorite thing. But then he got another brother and another sister, and his mom and I got divorced. He came and lived with me, and when I got remarried, suddenly had another brother and sister. And then we had another child, and he was one of 7. I think that was one of the reasons that he joined the Marines. You know, it was just too much to be at home with all those kids. I don't think he really understood what it meant to be in a barracks with 50 guys in bunks. He learned that shortly afterwards, a couple of weeks in boot camp, and I think he was ready to come back home. He really loved the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, especially Raphael, and he'd carry Raphael around with him all the time until he was an absolute tatter, and eventually we convinced him to put it in a plastic bag and put it away, and he did. And I actually found Raphael in that plastic bag in his room after he died, and we buried him with it. So he's still with Raphael. He loved Legos too, and I had built him a loft in his room for him to play with his Legos, and he built all kinds of neat things. But his real love, I think, was computers. From a very early age, he loved to work with computers and build them up. Spent a lot of his time playing video games on his computers. I had installed a kill switch on his room. It was just a GFCI outlet that happened to be in our bathroom, and I could kill that, and his whole room would go dark, and that's about the only way I could get him to sleep at night. And he never did figure out how I was doing that. When Mike was about 14, he got a guinea pig, and he named his guinea pig Stanley. And Stanley was very important to him. Stanley went everywhere with him. He would bite me, but Michael, he would eat out of his mouth. He was just his best friend. When Stanley passed away, Michael was absolutely crushed. We buried him in the backyard. It was very, very hard on Michael. It was his best friend. The loss of Stanley was probably the first time he experienced it, and he didn't want another pet after that. And Michael had a really special relationship with my parents, his grandparents. We lived right around the corner from them while he was growing up. I think he noticed over the years what a great relationship they had. He had a fiancée for a period of time, and his goal really was to have a relationship like his grandparents.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
Michael loved the holidays. For Christmas, he was seen in Santa hat most of the time. 4th of July was another one that he just loved. He was kind of a pyro and just loved lighting everything off. Halloween, that might have been his favorite. He would get dressed up in something that would cover his entire body, and then he would stand or sit motionless next to the candy bowl outside and scare the EBGBs out of any child that came up. And he just thought that was the greatest fun. I'm not sure if the kids had as much fun, but he loved it. After Michael joined the Marines, about 2 weeks into boot camp, he realized that it wasn't quite what he thought it would be, and that 6 brothers and sisters were suddenly looking pretty good. He was stationed at Camp Pendleton. That was very nice. It was near to where his aunts and uncles lived. So he was able to visit them and get to know them a lot better during the weekends when he wasn't deployed. And I think his aunts and uncles and cousins down there really appreciated getting to know him a lot better. On his first deployment, he went to Iraq on a Marine Expeditionary Unit, and this meant that he was on a ship the entire time, all the way to Iraq. It was pretty boring on the ship. But he got to stop in Hawaii and Australia and do some sightseeing. They stopped and provided relief efforts for the Sri Lanka tsunami, and that took a lot of their time. So when they did get to Iraq, they just did a little desert training. Michael trained to be a Humvee driver, and then they came back. When Mike was back after his first deployment, we went down to visit him and took him to California Adventure. And, I realized he wasn't a kid anymore. He was a Marine. And we had a great time seeing him so fit and confident and an adult. His second tour started with a flight to Iraq, and this time he was stationed in a concrete bunker in the war zone. Days were 120 degrees plus, nights weren't much cooler. He didn't tell us much about what he did there. This was the war zone. He didn't want to worry us about what was going on in Iraq, but we did learn that one of his primary jobs was to provide a quick response to any emergency. So if there was any kind of a firefight or explosion, he was to go immediately. He ended up transporting injured and dead Marines. I know at least once he ended up picking up a friend that he had been joking with the night before, and it was extremely difficult for him. And then a little later, as part of a convoy of military vehicles, Michael's Humvee exploded into a cloud of dust and debris. Mike's body was thrown clear and landed in a water-filled ditch, and his limp and broken body was pulled from the ditch and airlifted to the nearest field hospital. They stabilized him and flew him to Germany for more life-saving procedures. Getting that call, informing me of his injuries and asking if I wanted to be at his bedside was the second hardest day of my life. Mike was flown to Bethesda, Maryland, where we met him. He was in a coma, a breathing tube down his throat, his leg held together with external pins, and his body, his entire torso in a plastic encasement holding his broken body together. After 3 months in Bethesda, he was able to start rehab in Palo Alto. 3 months of excruciating physical therapy at Palo Alto, and he had reached the point of basic independent feeding, toileting, and bathing. And he was allowed to come home for a few weeks. During that time, he didn't do much. He just sat, and we were becoming more and more concerned that he may never regain his desire to live. Within a few weeks, he moved down to the Wounded Warrior Center at Camp Pendleton, where he was pushed as hard as he could be to regain his physical abilities. He earned the rank of corporal as part of the Wounded Warrior Regiment, and he met Major General Michael Leonard, who took him under his wing and kept him busy. And Mike finished his 4-year commitment, and then he came home. But the many injuries, the PTSD and the brain injury continued to cause him difficulties. His response time was much slower, his emotions more childlike. He had difficulty sleeping and just difficulty being comfortable. He received a full military retirement and full disability rating, and with that he was able to buy a house and invest in video games, video gaming equipment. It was his childhood love, and had plans to open up a vintage video gaming store at some point in the future. On February 11th, 2012, at 2 o'clock in the morning, we got a phone call that Michael was dead and that he'd been murdered. That was the hardest day of my life.
From the sky,
realize that he'd been killed after everything he'd gone through, and then to learn the details of how and why, it was so difficult and is so difficult to just wrap my whole being around it. He was a multi-million-dollar man. He had more than $1 million worth of repairs and things done on him, and so many people that cared about him. He was visited by Cher. He was visited by Tom Selleck. He was honored. And so to have someone see him as just his stuff, I can't put it into words. It's been very difficult for me to move on from this. I understand post-traumatic stress disorder now. I wish that I had understood it better while Michael was alive. It has changed me. I'm nervous, I don't eat well, and I have a hard time in crowds. I was always a fairly social person. I have a hard time socializing now. I hope that it will improve over time. It's affected everyone that knew Michael. It's hard on me, it's hard on everybody. It's hard on Nick's family. They've suffered as much as we have. We both lost sons that day. You know, there can be no satisfaction. There's no way to make it all better. It's destroyed families and caused tremendous pain. Moving forward is difficult, but he had brothers and sisters. I have other children. I have people that I care about and care about me, and I have to move forward. But it's a slow process. I'm hoping it comes more quickly once there's no more court cases and reminders. It's hard enough getting through his birthday and death day.
I know sometimes you may wonder, from little things I say and do, but there's no need for you to wonder if I need you, 'cause I'll need you till the rivers all run dry, till the sun falls from the sky, till